news we actually passed away in their sleep, so I was like, well, at least I made it this time.
Yeah.
So I wake up, you're like, oh, I'm
And
still
then my
here.
son was
So,
about to cry about
this is
rapping
a
that
positive.
Nipsey,
Oh,
yeah.
So hopefully this won't invoke stress for y'all. Hopefully this is kind of a positive to the end of your mathematical ladybug for this semester. This is all we have left, y'all.
Yes,
I'll be
hallelujah, praise the Lord.
This is the rest of the semester.
Okay.
So, today's April Fool's Day.
Don't play no jokes on us.
This ain't no joke.
This
give me no
is
20
2, 4, 6, 8. There's 10 days, 10 class periods left of this 10. We're down to 2 hands now, y'all.
I'll be back.
10 class periods left.
Bye.
And of those 10 class periods, 2 of those 10 class periods are test days.
So we had 8 days.
So that means we only have 8 class periods that are hub time. That's it. 8 class periods, y'all, that are hub time. That's it. Now, so our last day of class, of like lecture and hub, is May 1st. And then we have exam week. So our exam week is May 6th, May 7th, May 8th, and May 9th. Y'all's exam happens to fall on May 8th. Okay? And it will be during hub time, because we take our exams in hub. An exam for this class is nothing more than a scheduled assessment. It will be scheduled
we don't have to
assessment
come to
number
this class?
5. You won't come to this class. And you won't come on Monday. You will just come on the 8th, okay?
So we don't come to hub on Monday
Study.
either?
Right, you don't come to anything on Monday. That'll just be like a study day. So if I highlight, those are the only days. You'll come Monday, Wednesday, Monday, Wednesday, Monday, Wednesday, and then that last week you'll just come Wednesday. Now, if your average on May 1st is an 80 or higher, I will not see you on May 8th,
Oh, shit.
okay?
Talk about on that pie? Oh. You look at, come here,
An
mama.
80 or higher.
On that pie thing?
Now, in this class, y'all, in this class, if your average overall,
The pie full and everything?
this is your pie and your scheduled assessment. If it's an 80 or higher,
Yeah, you don't have to come to.
you get an SC star. We don't have A's, B's, and C's in this class. We have an SC. So your pie counts 25%.
So my pie gotta be at 100%?
Your scheduled assessment counts 75%. Now, I am trying to get your pie all the way to 100. Because the higher your pie is,
Look, and if,
Gotcha.
you don't have to make as high on your scheduled assessment.
oh.
Now, technically, if you make an 80 on your pie and an 80 on your scheduled assessment, you're out of here. But if you make an 80 on your pie and a 78 on your scheduled assessment, you're not out of here.
Coming back.
So if you can get your pie as high as possible, your scheduled assessment doesn't have to be as high. But however we work it, but your pie doesn't count as much. It only counts 25%. Your scheduled assessment counts 75%, so it counts 3 times more than your homework. So I'm going to do and we'll do your average after your test on Thursday if you want to. But after your test May 1st, if your average of the 2 is over an 80, I don't see you back. Because for this class, if your average is an 80 or higher, you get an SC, which just means you're out of here, successful completion.
Okay.
So I honestly want you to make it over 100. 192 is my ultimate goal. But we're at the end. As long as you make an 80 or
On
higher,
the fourth one that we had, the schedule assessment. Okay.
yep. That is my ultimate goal for y'all. Are we good?
Yeah.
The pie is lower than you do the high?
Do what?
You lower the pie but high on the other thing. Your hours?
As long as they average out to a 80. I don't care how the combination is.
Either one has to be an 80.
The average of the combination. They can either both be an 80, or one can be above and one be low, or one be above and one be low, as long as they average out to an 80.
Okay, we'll do this.
Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about Module 4. Module 4 is when we talk about positive and negative numbers. Now, you're going to have some positive and negative numbers you're going to see on your on your schedule assessment on Thursday. Now, you need to know that your negative button is right here. Your negative button is different than your subtraction button. This is your subtraction button, this is your negative button. So by a lot of you on your scheduled assessment, if you see some positive and negatives and get them right, you can boost your pie up just by this test. Let me get to some good ones. Let me find a good one. Let me do some solving equation ones. Let's do some of those before I get into some positive and negatives. In high school, y'all did problems like y'all did problems like these four. These are the four basic problems. Some of y'all are really good at these and some of you stink at these. Okay? Now,
Excuse me.
42 years ago.
I know. It's right here. It's right here in the back. Now, our goal is to get x by itself. That's our goal. Now, this equal sign, that separates the west side and the east side. Now, if you're in your hood, you do what it says. If you go over to the other hood, you change the side.
You get beat up.
So if you in your hood and you a good person, but if you go to somebody else's hood, you're gonna be a bad person. Y'all with me?
Yes, ma'am.
So I am gonna draw that line to represent the different sides of the hood. So there's my line representing the east side and the west side. Now, my goal is to keep x by itself. So do you agree, in order to get x by itself, I need to move the plus 3? So to get the plus 3 to the other side, anytime I cross that line and get it to the other side, I do the opposite. So what's the opposite of adding 3? Subtracting 3. We good? Now, the reason we subtract 3 is because what is a positive 3 minus 3 or a 3 minus 3? 0. And we don't walk around saying, I have an x plus 0. If you got no money, we keep it on the down low. So we don't walk around saying, I've got plus 0. We just say, I have an x. And on the back side, what is 9 minus 3? There's my answer. So if it's a plus 3, we subtract 3. Now, on the next problem, here's my line. I want to get x by itself. So what am I trying to move?
The 4.
The 4. The 4 is held together by what operation?
The subtraction.
Subtract 4. So how do I move a subtract 4?
Add.
We add 4 because we are moving it to the other side of town. A minus 4 and a plus 4 becomes 0. So on the back side of town, what do we have? 7 plus 4?
11.
There's my answer. So if it's held together by addition, we subtract. If it's held together by subtraction, we add. Well, look at the next one. We're trying to get x together. How are those two things held together?
Multiplication.
Multiplication. And the reason we know that is because they are so close together. If you standing that close to somebody, you better be married. Married is multiplication. So what's the opposite of being married?
Division.
Divorcing or division. So I was married to a 3, so I'm going to divorce a 3. Those cancel. So what is my answer gonna be? 5. Now, for the last problem, x is by itself. How are those held together? Division. So what is the opposite of division by 2? Multiplication by 2. So what is my answer going to be? 20. So whatever I do, or however it's held together, I'm going to do the opposite. We good? So if it shows addition, we're going to subtract. If it shows subtraction, we're going to add. If it shows multiplication, we're going to divide. If it shows division, we're going to multiply. We're going to get harder. These are the 4 basics. Okay, hold on. Let me find an easy one to start with. All right, let's look at this one. What am I going to do to get W by itself? Our goal is to get W by itself, so we're trying to move the plus 2. So the opposite of adding 2 is subtracting 2. And if we need to draw that line to separate our 2 sides of town, the reason we're subtracting 2 is because 2 minus 2 disappears. That leaves me with W, and that side is going to be 7. All right, let me find another one. What about this one? W's on the back side of town, but it's okay. We still want W to be by itself.
So I subtract. I mean add, because it's subtraction, so you add.
It is subtract 1, so we're going to add 1. Those are going to cancel, so what is my answer going to be? 6. We feeling good?
Yeah.
All right. Those are about the same thing. Okay, what about that one?
Yeah, that's all it is, division.
We are going to divide by
3.
3 because that's what we're trying to move. Those 3's cancel. So I go to my calculator and I'm going to type in 51, divide 51, divided by 3. So it's going to be X on the back and 17 on the front. Yay? What about this one? What am I going to do to both sides? It's held together by division. So we are going to multiply both sides by 3. Cool? All right, now let's look at this one. Let me go to my main page before I do one like this. Let's do 2x plus 20 equals 50. Our goal is still the same. Our goal is to get x by itself. So, in my warped brain, I see a married couple. Do y'all see that married couple?
Yeah.
And I see a single friend. Okay? So this is Terry. Terry ultimately wants to be alone.
Terry.
Okay? So this is Terry, and that's our goal, because the problem says solve for x. So Terry wants to be alone. So we know that we need to get rid of both of these to get Terry by itself. So we've got to decide, do we get rid of his wife, or do we get rid of his best friend? Or does it matter? Who do we need to get rid of first? Does Terry's wife need to go?
I think the 20. The 20.
We always get rid of the best friend first. Because when he goes to divorce court, we don't want any witnesses.
Oh, wow.
So always, always, always get rid of the witnesses first. So how do we get rid of the best friend? How is the best friend held together?
But addition.
Addition, so how do we get rid of the best friend?
Subtract.
So we are gonna subtract 20 to both sides. So what we're doing is we're moving that best friend to the back. I call that move all the single ladies to the back. Okay, so all those single ladies are going to the back. And if we need to draw that little line, we can draw that little line. So you are moving those single friends to the back. So I'm left with a married couple on the front. And what am I left with on the back? 30. Now, there's no witnesses. It's just a married couple. How do I split that married couple up? They're held together by multiplication, so how do I split them up? We divide. The opposite of marriage is divorce. I am married to a 2, so I divorce a 2. What's my answer?
15.
Ooh, there it is.
That was easy.
You get rid of the single ladies and then you divorce. Divorce is always the last step. All right, let's try this one. This problem says 41 equals 5W minus 9. My goal is to get W by itself.
So you gotta get rid of that 9.
So here is my equal sign.
Get rid of that 9. So you add.
We got to get rid of that single lady. We're trying to move everybody away from Wanda. Wanda's married to the 5, and that -9 is a friend. So we've got to get rid of that -9. So how do I get rid of a -9?
You add.
Add 9 to both sides of town. So what do I have on the front? 50. What do I have on the back? 5W. Now we are left with the married couple. How do we split that married couple up?
You do divorce them.
Divorce them. There's my answer.
I like this. It's easier. I really have to.
Yay?
See, I had Lisa McKenzie.
All right, look at this one.
Yeah, Mr. McKenzie, you had no point for to know that Mr. Barker lied.
X is in a complicated relationship. They got a little bipolar going on, a little complication.
That's funny.
We still got to get rid of the single, all the single ladies to the back. Tell me what I need to do. Plus 8 to both sides. What am I left with on the front?
That X over 4.
X over 4. What am I left with on the back?
30.
Okay. My goal is still to get X by itself. So I'm trying to move what number?
That 4.
The 4. How is the 4 held on? It's held on by division, so how am I going to move it? Multiplication.
Yes.
That's like a divorced couple trying to get married again.
That's his name.
All right, let's,
go back to that one?
I can do whatever you want. We move the single ladies to the back. That was held together by division. So the opposite of dividing by 4 is multiplying by 4. Let's go a little bit harder. Oh.
Hey there now.
All right. Let's do. Okay, for these, they want you to tell me which one is less than and which one is greater than. Okay, remember the smaller number and the bigger number. If you're thinking about Pac-Man, the bigger number goes towards, the mouth goes towards the bigger number.
Yes.
So if I were to graph this, if this is 0, -1, -2, -3, here's -4, and -11 is gonna be down here. Which one's my bigger number?
Oh,
-4 is my bigger
because it's
number,
close to 0?
because it's closer to the 0.
Okay,
Okay, for the next one, here's 0, here's -7, here's -8. Which one's the bigger number? -7, so your mouth faces the bigger number. +12 and -3. Who's the bigger number?
The Lord has to do 12 right
I have $12, you are broke and owe somebody $3. Who has more? The $12, the positive number, because it's positive. We good?
yes.
All right. Absolute value.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Absolute value is when you have, they're not curved, they're not parentheses, they're straight up and down. Absolute value is like absolute, I didn't spell that right.
You surely did.
ABSOLUTE. Absolute value reminds me of absolute vodka. When you drink absolute, and we hope that nobody in here is a nasty drunk, but if you get drunk, you're a positive person. So, if you start out as a negative person and you drink absolute, you're a positive person. If you start out as a positive person and you drink absolute, you're still a positive person. So absolute value just means make me positive.
Oh.
So whatever I was before, I end up being positive. So if I was a loser, I was 0, I'm still going to be a 0. So what's the absolute value of 5? 5. What's the absolute value of -11? What's the absolute value of 2.6? What's the absolute value of -1/2?
1/2.
So the absolute value is just the number positive.
Always somebody.
It's always positive. So if it was, it's not the opposite. It's just whatever the number was positive. Now, your calculator can do absolute value. Most of y'all didn't realize that your calculator has a table of contents. It's written right here. It's called the catalog. It's in blue, so hit your blue button and then hit your catalog button. So if I hit second and I hit catalog, your catalog is everything this calculator will do. So let's say you're on a test and you need to do an LCM problem and you forgot where to go for LCM. If you go to the catalog and you start scrolling down and you're like, oh, I can get to LCM if I forget where it is. And y'all, the good thing is, look above your keys. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. If you just hit the L button, it'll zoom to the L's. So if I just hit the button with L's on it, it'll go down to the L's and I get beside LCM and I just hit enter. So if you forget where something's hidden, this lists everything the calculator will do in alphabetical order. That's called the catalog. Now, for what I want to do, I'm going to go back to second catalog, and the very first one is the absolute value.
Enter.
Yep, get beside it and hit enter. So if I type in -3, I am doing the absolute value of -3. If I go back in and do second catalog, get beside absolute value, and I type in the absolute value of 5. All it's doing is making that number positive. So if you forget, because absolute value is one of those things that are so easy, but a lot of people forget how to do them.
So they see them bars, they like, okay, what these bars mean.
Get drunk and make me positive.
So,
Wait, what you did again?
do that again.
Hold on.
Okay, I did second 0,
Second and 0. Uh-huh.
and then I hit enter.
I hit enter.
Does yours say ABS with parentheses?
The ABS.
Okay, it's the same thing as mine. Yours will say ABS parentheses.
Mhm.
And then if you do -5 and hit enter, it's the same thing.
Enter. 5.
And then if you do ABS parentheses 11, enter. My calculator just did the straight bars, and yours just does ABS in parentheses.
Yeah.
11.
It's the same thing.
Your point.
Why
So-
was it saying 31 when I put it in there? I put the -31 and it's saying 31.
Yeah, the absolute value of -31 is gonna be 31. Because the absolute value is always positive.
I said you had 3 of them.
Hold on. I did the absolute value of -3. Yeah. You good? All right. Now, when you type in negative numbers, so if we're typing in this problem into our calculator, I do not see absolute value, I see parentheses, so we're gonna type this exactly like it's written. So it's gonna be 32 plus parentheses. What is that gonna be?
A negative.
A negative. 42, close it. There's my answer. Now, when I type in the next one,
Wait a minute.
now, let me show you, what if you had typed in the first one wrong? What if you had used the subtraction button instead of the negative button? It's gonna come back and tell you that you screwed up.
Negative.
It's gonna tell you that you screwed up and you did the subtraction instead of the negative. So for the next one, what is that button?
That's subtraction.
Close it up.
The negative? Not a negative.
Okay,
Yes, it is.
a subtraction is when you're holding two things together.
It's a negative number.
It's a
So
negative.
this one is a negative.
Mhm.
This one was a negative. Tell me about the 28. Is that a negative or a subtraction?
It's a negative.
Negative.
That is a negative because none of those are holding two things together. So when I do that next one, it is going to be negative 53 plus parentheses negative 28 parentheses negative 81. These go fast. Okay, now let's look at this one. What is this symbol?
A subtraction.
Subtract.
That is a subtraction because it's holding two things together. What is this one?
A negative.
That is a negative. What is this one?
Negative.
Negative.
What is this one?
Subtraction.
What is this one?
Negative.
Okay, so they give you a bunch of problems to make sure you know the difference between them. So it's going to be 4, subtract, parentheses, negative 8, close it.
Your point, your point.
Negative 5, subtract, parentheses, negative 9, close it. And they're going to want you to, they're going to say, oh, a negative plus a negative is a blah, blah, blah. Do it in your calculator. What is this?
Negative. No, subtraction.
Subtraction,
Subtraction.
subtraction,
Plus.
subtraction, because they're holding things together.
Yes.
Now, if I give you, hold on, let me find, okay, like this one. What is that?
That's all negative.
That's a negative. What is that?
Subtraction.
And what must we do with fractions?
Wrap them up.
Wrap them up.
Gotta wrap it up.
So it's going to be negative, and then we wrap up the 4/5, subtract, and then we wrap up the 1/6.
Dang, how many give me some cereal?
And they want it in simplest form, so what do we have to do now? Math, enter, enter. There's your answer. You don't have to get common denominators like they tell you. You just have to type in those negatives and wrap them up. How would I type this one in?
Negative.
Negative,
Wrap it
and
up.
then, oops, got carried away, then wrap up the 1/4. What next?
Subtraction.
Subtract,
Wrap it.
and then wrap up the -7/6,
Yes.
and then simplify it.
Math into.
This part of module 4 should go super fast.
So.
It should.